The Big Nerd Road Trip keeps rolling on as this time we visit a store I've never visited before, Miso Games. Folks, and welcome to episode 3 of the Big Nerd Road Trip, and this time we are visiting a store I have never visited before, Miso Games, and judging from their Facebook posts and videos I've seen from this store before, we are definitely in for a treat this time. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday night at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. If you've missed an episode of the Big Nerd Road Trip so far, fear not, I'll link them all down below in a playlist. Now, let's head to Miso Games. Here we are then, our third stop on the Big Nerd Road Trip is right here at Miso Games. And like I said, this is a store I'd never visited before. And as soon as I stepped through those doors, I could see, once again, this shop is very well stocked. Floor to ceiling with video games and general retro awesomeness and a little bit of everything that I love. We're starting strong with some real nostalgia here. This Gladiator's metal TV dinner tray, a real staple of the 80s and 90s, sadly lost to time. This Gladiator's joust toy was super cool, made by Hornby no less, you know, the people who normally make model railways. And below was an Atari Lynx, a much unloved console which one day I would love to add to my collection because it's such a cool piece. Our second metal TV tray here, a vintage WWF number this time, but this is the main thing that caught my eye as I stepped into the store, this massive shelf of VHS tapes, because recently I've really caught the VHS collecting bug, and one thing I love to collect for is Star Wars, but I don't think I'll be picking up these Ewoks tapes anytime soon. It's a series I've never seen, but judging by the artwork, I'm guessing it's fairly cursed. But regardless, it was really cool to see a really good selection of decent retro VHS here at Miso Games, including this Star Wars box set, somewhat carrying on the Star Wars theme, a box set I've never seen before, and honestly, I simply forgot to pick this up. But no doubt I'll be back in the future, and when I do, I'll grab it. That's because when it comes to VHS collecting, I love picking up these different variants of the original Star Wars trilogy, as because this trilogy has been recut and edited so many times, pretty much any VHS tape you pick up will be a version you may have never seen before. As well as Star Wars, I love to collect vintage WWF wrestling tapes. That's because honestly, I find this the best way to watch this, as it just gives you that proper retro feel. This was one of the most random and also one of the coolest items we saw here at Miso Games, this Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles Playhouse, but of all the TV trays we've seen so far, this Turtles one was by far my favourite and the most tempting. But on to video games, and we're quite randomly starting off here in the Xbox One section. Now, Miso Games has an incredible selection of both retro and modern games, but normally when I'm hunting in an independent gaming store such as this one, I'm mainly looking for retro. But I did have a really good peruse here of the Xbox 360 section, and this did catch my eye, this hardened edition of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. But of all the Call of Duty special editions, I have to admit this is probably one of the most boring. Now, this was a pleasant surprise. Miso Games had a really good selection of retro PC games. Now, when it comes to retro PC games, I'll only ever pick up big box PC games or PC CD-ROM games. I just find the ones in the DVD cases don't really have the same appeal, and I had a really good selection here of these PC CD-ROM games. A couple I was tempted to pick up, but I'm holding out for something else cool. This glass cabinet of dreams had a really good selection. It had some PSP, some PS Vita, 2 consoles I love to collect for, another TV dinner tray, this time the real Ghostbusters. Heading down, we had a really nice selection of Evercade games, some very, very minty N64 games, and at the bottom here, a console you do not see very often, the Philips CDI, one I'd love to add to my collection. Now, I said this on the last episode of the Big Nerd Roadtrip, but it's not very often these days you see Sega Saturn games. And once again, Miso Games had a really good selection of these, a really good selection of Dreamcast games. And again, this was something you do not see very often, a Sega 32X game, Virtua Fighter, in very nice condition. It's getting very hard to find 32X games, especially in good condition. This is a Mega Drive game I've wanted for a long while. RoboCop vs Terminator, two of the best franchises of the 80s. Speaking of, Alien 3 for the Sega Game Gear. Chessmaster, which we picked up in the last episode. But once again, I'm just thinking I'm going to have to pick up one of these games. And it's probably going to be this game right here, Echo the Dolphin, in absolutely incredible condition, boxed complete for 20 quid. I said it in the last episode, I'll say it again now, it's not very often I see Sega Game Gear games, but when I do, I've just got to pick one up because it's so rare to see in these days. But this is one of the rarest things I think I have ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen this before, so I was perusing the Sega Mega Drive section here at Miso Games, and I noticed one of these games was randomly in a box protector. I was like, why is a cheap sports game in a box protector? It's because this game was brand new and sealed. I was tempted to pick this up, simply because it's a sealed Mega Drive game, even though an unsealed copy would be substantially cheaper, simply because I've never seen it before. You may be wondering why I decided not to pick up that sealed Mega Drive game. Well, it's simply because I don't really collect sealed games. I am a firm believer in opening your games, playing them, and enjoying them. So I decided to have a peruse of the SNES section here. And there were some really good games here at really good prices in really good condition. But I'm quite picky when it comes to what SNES games I pick up for my collection. And there was nothing here I really needed. But it's so good to see box SNES games in this condition in 2025. Is it getting harder and harder to find? That Super Game Boy, the artwork and that was incredible. A really nice selection of N64 games here, and of course some consoles, and this was super cool. This Intellivision complete in the box. The main thing I loved about Miso Games is how they display everything. The shelves are packed with games, and on top of the shelves you have consoles, collector's editions, boxed cool items. Pretty much exactly how I display things in my games room. It was like a home away from home, and honestly, I could quite happily have moved in because everywhere I looked, I found something else cool. And we said about the Atari Lynx earlier. Well, check it out. Here we have the boxed console and a very large selection of boxed games. Once again, this is a console I have a very small selection of boxed games for because I love the artwork. Now, I would consider myself to have a fairly decent knowledge of retro games, but one massive hole in my knowledge is some of the more obscure consoles. Your CDI, your Atari, your Commodore, and mainly tape-based games. And Miso Games had, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the biggest selections of floppy disk and cassette-based games I have ever seen. If you collect for the Spectrum, the Atari, any of these tape-based consoles, you need to make the pilgrimage to Miso Games. There were so many cool retro items I saw in Miso Games I haven't thought about for years. Like these Tiger Electric handheld games, this Game.com. Who remembers this console? This was one which kind of came and went very quickly, but one of the best parts of Miso Games was this absolutely giant shelf full of PS1 games. This was such a good way to display these games. You could see exactly what you were pulling off the shelf. And there was a really good selection of affordable PS1 games here. Now, I consider myself to have a fairly substantial PS1 collection, but I'm always looking out for other games to add to the collection. Now, I think I already have Descent and Descent 2. I will need to check that one because I was tempted to pick up that game. But this is one thing I love about the PlayStation library. There's always more games you need. If you have 100 games, there's still more games. If you have 500 games, there's still games you've never heard of, such as this game right here, Time Shock. Have never seen this before. For £6, I'm picking it up. I want to say this again. This is an absolutely fantastic way to display PlayStation games. I understand most stores have these spine on because it's an easier way to store them, but this wall was a thing of absolute beauty. I had a little peruse of the Xbox section and found this game I've never seen before, Spy Hunter 2. Much like the PS1, I have a massive Xbox collection, over 500 games. I've never seen this one before, and because it had the manual, because it's only £2, I'm picking it up. Now, when it comes to displaying retro games, some of the hardest games to display are for the Game Boy, and this is a great way to display all of these Game Boy titles here at Miso Games. I have seen other stores display them in the same way, but it just looked really cool here on his cabinet, and underneath was something very cool, these WCW LCD watches. How incredibly retro are these? I absolutely love them, as well as this monster in my pocket lunchbox and thermos. Very, very cool. The artwork on these was just absolute fire, as well as another LCD watch here, this time for Austin Powers. There we have it then, folks. That was our third and penultimate stop for the Big Nerd Road Trip, and just before we hit the road again, there's just time to peruse this library of official Nintendo magazines here at Miso Games. I was very tempted to pick one of these up, but I decided to pass today as we have one final stop on the Big Nerd Road Trip. But first, let's take it back to the games room for the pickups. Here we are then, back in the games room after my first ever trip to Miso Games for the Big Nerd Road Trip, and I was very impressed. I can't believe it's taken me this long to visit this independent gaming store, as they had so much of everything I love. Retro toys, VHS tapes, and of course retro video games. And spoiler alert, in an upcoming episode of the NES Top 40 at 40, I did find a very, very nice boxed NES game on this visit. But back to the pickups this time, and first off, I saw that massive wall of PS1 games. I knew I had to pick up a PS1 game, and this one was a real bargain. It is Time Shock, a PS1 pinball game I have never seen before. Now, little known fact, PS1 pinball games are some of my wife's favourite games to play on a PS1 or any console. I've never seen this game before, and as somebody who owns hundreds of PS1 games, it's amazing to see games I still have never seen before for this console. This was just £6. It is boxed complete with the manual, and yeah, as I said, me and my wife are just a sucker for these pinball games on PlayStation. Now, I know it's not the most popular console to collect for, but I love collecting for the OG Xbox. And one of the things I wanted to do on the Big Nerd Road Trip was to pick up things I'd never seen before. And this is a game I've never seen before for the OG Xbox. It is Spy Hunter 2. Now, I see Spy Hunter fairly commonly for the OG Xbox, the PS2 and even the GameCube. So for £2 I had to pick up this sequel. It is, of course, boxed complete with a manual, and this is a real zeitgeist here. It has special features including the theme song, Dark Carnival, performed by Vanessa Carlton, and an interview with Vanessa Carlton. So, other than all that great Vanessa Carlton content, I'm just really excited to jump into Spy Hunter 2. Which brings us on to our final pickup from Miso Games. And if you saw the last episode of the Big Nerd Road Trip, you'll know I'm slowly building a minty boxed Game Gear collection. So it goes without saying, again this time at Miso Games I had to pick up a game for my Game Gear collection, because you don't see them very often. They're like buses, you see loads at once, and this time I picked up a Sega classic Echo the Dolphin for the Sega Game Gear, and this is in incredible condition. This is, for me, just the epitome of Sega in the 90s. Games such as this. It comes in a box protector, which is always appreciated, and like I said, this is in incredible condition. It is, of course, boxed with the manual. Be a bit more careful with this kind of old cardboard here. This is strange. I don't think I've ever seen this before. I've seen like the manual, which is a thick old boy, and then we have the cartridge here in this little tiny kind of weird, I don't know, egg carton thing. Really cool. But yeah, very happy to add another Game Gear game to my slowly increasing Game Gear library. There we have it then, folks. That was Miso Games, the penultimate stop of the Big Nerd Road Trip. But I have saved arguably the best till last. Our final stop on the Big Nerd Road Trip coming next week will be the Nerd Base in Battlebridge, Essex. And if you've never seen the Nerd Base in Battlebridge before, it is one of the best independent toy shops you will ever visit in the entire world. So stay tuned for that, the finale of the Big Nerd Road Trip. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See you soon.